if you just do a very simple Google search on does China have a BSL-4 laboratory, Wuhan comes up right away. So it does seem to me that the Wuhan BSL-4 is the source of the coronavirus. Yes, and my guess is that they were researching SARS and they weaponized it further. Latest report now is its 15% fatality rate, which is more than SARS, and 83% infection rate. So typical gain of function, it travels in the air. So it could reach out maybe 6 feet or more from someone emitting a sneeze or a cough. This is a specially designated WHO research lab. So the WHO is in on it, and they knew full well what was going on there. Yes, it's also been reported that Chinese scientists stole coronavirus materials from the Canadian lab at Winnipeg. Winnipeg is Canada's foremost center for research, developing, testing biological warfare weapons. I have 3 degrees from Harvard. Would not surprise me if something was being stolen out of Harvard to turn over to China, including Russia and China. They were going to set up a whole series of BSL-4 facilities as well, and Wuhan was the first, and it backfired on them. So this was a catastrophe waiting to happen, and unfortunately, it happened. And the Chinese government under Xi and his comrades there have been covering this up from the get-go. The first reported case was December 1. So they've been sitting on this until they couldn't anymore. And everything they're telling you is a lie. It's propaganda. The outbreak occurred, of course, I considered that alternative too. You always have, when you have an outbreak, you're never quite sure who or what is behind it. It certainly isn't bats. I mean, that's ridiculous. They made the same argument on Ebola in West Africa. I demolished that online. You can check it out. When you originally contacted me, I said I wasn't prepared to comment because I was weighing the evidence. I'm a law professor, a lawyer. I try to do the best I can to weigh the evidence. But right now, that Wuhan BSL-4, in my opinion, is the most likely source. Apply Occam's razor, the simplest explanation.
If we go back a decade to the 2009 swine flu, which I believe didn't have too many casualties, but I think profited greatly the pharmaceutical companies. And if I recall that back in 2009, many countries purchased great stocks of the vaccines. 50% of WHO funding comes from pharmaceutical companies, and that the CDC itself is also severely compromised.
Yeah, you can't trust anything the WHO says because they're all bought and paid for by big pharma, and they work in cahoots with the CDC, which is the United States government. They work in cahoots with Fort Detrick. So you can't trust anything. Swine flu, which I looked at, it did seem to me to be a genetically modified biological warfare weapon. It was a chimera of 3 different types of genetic strains that someone put it together in a cocktail. Fortunately, it was not as lethal as all of us feared. So fine. But as I said, this figure I just gave to you was Saturday from Lancet, I think far more serious than swine flu. Perhaps political leaders have already been vaccinated for all I know. The Bill and Melinda Gates information, they fund this type of DNA genetically engineered biological warfare work. That's correct. So you can't trust anything they're telling you that somehow they're out there trying to make the world a better place. I mean, we have Bill Gates publicly admitting the world would be a better place if there were a lot less people. So they're the Bill Melinda Gates Foundation. They are wolves in sheep's clothing, and they are funding this type of stuff. Sure.
I guess it was a consortium of companies, which included the Gates Foundation, that back in just 2-3 months ago, in October of 2019, they held a pandemic exercise simulating an outbreak. I mean, what are the chances specifically of a coronavirus? And I mean, I don't know if it was called Event 201. People can find this online, and they gave a list of 7 recommendations for governments and international organizations to take. I mean, I also find that kind of interesting how they had this simulation.
That's correct. It's the origins of what happened here. BSL-3 and BSL-4 labs are only designed for research, development, testing of offensive biological warfare agents. They have, in my opinion, they serve no legitimate purpose at all. They should all be shut down, every one of them.